Hello and welcome to On the Record, a debate-style television talk show where Bahamians will find the balanced, true and open debate they've been looking for. The opposition Progressive Liberal Party says constitutional reform is a top priority. Over a year ago, attorney Alfred Sears publicly declared that the party's constitution was outdated and needed to be more relevant in this millennium. More than a year after the election defeat, the party is in rebuilding mode. A constitutional committee headed by attorney Raynard Rigby is focused on modernizing the PLP to not only win an election, but to attract quality candidates and membership. Tonight, our topic is PLP moving closer to new constitution. And our guests are Raynard Rigby, attorney and PLP Constitutional Committee Chairman, Robin Lyons, PLP Vice Chairman, and Glenisha Aubrey, a university student, Toastmaster, and first Vice Chairman of the Progressive Young Liberals. It's all on the record. I'm your host, Jerome Sawyer. Our discussion begins on the other side of this break.
Hi, I'm here to tell you about the fastest way to purchase the vehicle you want right from home.
With SBT Japan, we import used cars from Japan straight to you.
Car ownership doesn't have to be hard. Go to sbtjapan.com and sign up for free. Search for the car you want, place your order, and make a payment using any one of our convenient payment options. Once you pay the duty and tax to our in-house broker, we will clear the vehicle and even deliver it straight to your home. Sounds too easy? Well, shouldn't it be?
Every time I'm in the Bahamas, I use Rev Go Play.
Got that food. It's packing. Here it comes.
Yo.
Wait, Omar coming?
Boy, this Rev Go Play, solid.
Rev, you and us together.
Welcome back to On the Record. The PLP is making constitutional changes, and we're going to discuss those changes with our guest, Raynard Rigby, Chairman of the PLP Constitutional Committee, Robin Lyons, PLP Vice Chair, and Glenisha Aubrey, First Vice President of the Progressive Young Liberals. Folks, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
Glad to have you. Glad to have you. Well, changes to the PLP Constitution have been bandied about in the party for some time now. The events of this past weekend were preceded by a series of events that brought the party to this place. We begin tonight, though, with a look at how we've arrived at this point. In early August of 2016, a former minister in the PLP government, Alfred Sears, announced he would challenge then sitting Prime Minister and party leader Perry Christie for leader of the Progressive Liberal Party. With less than a year before a general election, it was a bold but seemingly fruitless attempt. It would seem to stand to reason that no incumbent governing party would dare to change its leader so close to an election. It would almost spell certain defeat. You need only recall the run-up to the 2002 elections. The governing Free National Movement agreed to have then Prime Minister Hubert Ingraham step aside to allow Tommy Turnquest to lead the party into elections. The FNM suffered a resounding defeat. History aside, Christie reneged on his promise to serve only a portion of his term as Prime Minister and mounted a ferocious re-election bid within the party. January 2017, Sears suffers a resounding defeat at the party's convention.
We don't want no other leader. One 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 leader. Very good. One leader. One leader. One leader. One leader. One leader.
Allegations that the all-important stalwart councillors were stacked in Christie's favour gave rise to much-needed reforms of the party's constitution. But with elections only months away, any discussion about reforming the Constitution was shelved. May 10th would bring the greatest defeat for the PLP in election history. With the sitting Prime Minister even in the losing column, it was clear the party was out of touch with even its own supporters.
Bahamians, by the thousands, peacefully exercised their democratic right to elect the government of their choice in free and fair general elections. We congratulate them on their civility as the Bahamas cherishes its international reputation as one of the oldest and most stable democracies. They spoke loud and clear, and there is an adage that the voice of the people is the voice of God. We believe this and we humbly accept their verdict. We congratulate those who are victorious, and the PLP will have to go in a mode of rebuilding.
With only 4 members left in the House, former Deputy Prime Minister and Deputy Leader Philip Brave Davis ascended to party leader. As the post-election analysis began, it was clear that the PLP was in need of an overhaul. Last weekend, the party took a significant step in real reform, a one-day convention on constitutional change.
This is the beginning of really a transition into a reformed party. The Constitution is essentially a new document.
And welcome to my guest tonight. That certainly gave us an insight into how we got to this point. And, you know, a year can be a very long or short time, but certainly a lot has happened within the PLP over the past year or so. But let's first of all talk about what a party's constitution does, how it really affects the workings of the party, and why is it so important?
Well, the Constitution is the prominent document which governs the structures, the organizations, the various arms and affiliates within the party structure. And it sets out the relationship that the various bodies have with the membership in the constituencies and at other levels of the party. And more importantly, it also talks about decision-making processes, the importance of the convention, the National General Council. And by and large, it sets out the general rules that will govern how decisions are made at the constituency level and at the national party level.
When is the last time this Constitution was amended in earnest, or were there any real changes made to the Constitution?
Well, we've been going through constitutional amendments for the past several conventions. Yeah. So this is nothing
So
new.
It's an ongoing...
It's always an ongoing process. Every National General Convention, a member of the party could move an amendment to the Constitution. What we were seeking to do in this exercise is to focus on some important issues. One is ensuring that there is flexibility in the operational allowances at our constituency level and in our arms and affiliates, to ensure that there is a greater participation by young people and women and family island representatives in the party structure on our committees and commissions. And thirdly, to also ensure that the voice of the delegates coming from the respective constituencies are heard in a process which is open, fair, honest, and accountable.
Yeah. I think, too, the reason why this particular constitutional amendment exercise has gotten so much attention is because of how extensive it has been this time, as opposed to amending various sections here and there, because we had amendments into, as early as January 2017. We had amendments in the last convention that we had in October. But this particular exercise was not all of the bells and whistles of a convention. This was a zoned-in constitutional convention that started from November of 2017 when the Constitutional Committee was appointed to look at the Constitution, to do an extensive level of consultation across the islands, across our branches, across leadership. Let's look at what governs us, and let's come together in a conversation and see how we want to be governed moving forward. So the level that we've gone to make sure that we're tailoring a document that reflects who we are as a party now, and also answers a lot of what we've been asked to do from our membership. as well as the electorate as a whole.
What are some of the key things, though, that really precipitated this? You know, you're talking about a convention that zones in just on the Constitution. Clearly, there were some things that were identified that would have contributed to the PLP losing the election that you think now need to be addressed. I mean, we heard in the setup piece that there's always this talk about, and I keep going back to the stalwart councillors and how they are elected and how it is that they affect so many things in the party, and I think that was one of the cries prior to the election. I mean, you would have heard from many quarters, oh, the stalwart councillors were stacked in favor of a Christie. But what are some of the key things that you can say that really precipitated this particular move at this time and brought you together to say, hey, we need to change some things and we need to do it now?
Well, I think, and I'm sure Glenisha and Renard will speak to other points, but as you said, one of the things that people complained about, party members as well as party supporters complained about, was that the way leaders are elected, the way officers are elected, the way that delegates are selected, and the amount of delegates that can be selected did not represent a cross-sectional representation of how the electorate looks. For instance, we have some 2,400 plus stalwart councillors, and all those persons are automatic delegates in a convention with full voting rights. Wow. No, but I mean, the party is large, and we've had so many people that have earned the right to ascend to this level of honor. And so, I mean, as many as there are many more that are deserving equally. So, you know, but the reality of it is all those persons have a right to vote at a national general convention, whereas with our branch delegates, there are only 10 delegates that can be elected from each constituency branch, and with the National General Council member, that would make 11. So with 39 constituencies, you're looking at a little over 400 persons from each branch at max. You see what I'm saying? And so when you look at those persons, in addition to national officers, in addition to parliamentarians and other delegates at the branch, the stalwart councillors, I mean, by and large, would significantly outweigh the amount of voting power. And I think one of the challenges that we had was that this is a 50-plus group demographic. And persons were concerned that if this is the voting power, if this is the mass of how decisions are being made in this demographic, how does my demographic have equal representation? How does Glenisha's demographic
that's where I'm going to get to Glenisha right now.
Representation, and that was what we were trying to address.
Now, Glenisha, this is for you. As a young person, you now represent the youth arm, a very important arm of any political party, because you know the youth arms are where the next generation of politicians are groomed. You know, a lot of sitting even ministers would have gotten their start in these youth organizations. But when you look at 2,000 plus stalwart councillors, and she used the term earn the right. If I just show up, I really earn the right to do nothing at this point other than to be a part of the party. But as a young person now, you're looking at this, I'm sure, and those who you represent are looking at this and asking, how am I going to be a part of this process? Particularly when your generation and that voting bloc now is the largest segment of the voting population. First-time voters had a significant role in the election. How now, or is that address? You know, what's happening now? Is that addressing your group?
So when we first heard about the Constitution changes and amendments, we sat down with Renard Rigby and we told him that we wanted a seat at the table. We wanted more power. We want our voice to be heard.
And you should. Yes. You represent a very large voting bloc.
And what the party did for us is, before the election, they would sit us down on some committees. There'd be one young liberal. But now the Constitution changes now, where we've earned the seat at the table now.
I like that.
The Constitution,
yes.
The Constitution puts us there, and it's not just one young liberal. It's 3 or 4 young liberals and all of the different commissions and the different committees that's there. So you can't overpower one young liberal with your ideas. You have to overpower 3 or 4. And you can't overpower me that easily, and other young liberals are the same. So now we realize that with more rights and voting delegates that we're now awarded, we can change the party to a more progressive and modern state.
Mm-hmm. Did you find that, you know, as a young voter, did you feel that the party was out of touch with you and your generation?
I did feel like the party was a bit out of touch with our generation. Like I said, we didn't have as much voices in leadership. So the party would assume that because one person there on the board would say, yeah, I think that's a good idea, that they would say, okay, that's all of the young vote. Mm-hmm. But like I said, now we have more people to be on these boards, so we have a difference of opinions. So it was out of touch. We were out of touch with the youth vote, and we were trying to bring us all together, but of course it didn't work out. But now, seeing that we're regrouping and we're changing the Constitution, we're now all coming together to make those amendments to the party.
Well, definitely we have a lot to talk about. We're just at the point now of our first break. The PLP moving closer to new Constitution. That's our discussion tonight. We're back right after this quick break.
Gimme the music. Gimme the goombay. Gimme. Gimme Rick and scream. Gimme. Gimme the junk on blue. Gimme. Gimme my culture. Hey,
Hi, I'm Davriel, and welcome to Rev Tips, where we answer your most important Rev service questions. Today, I want to talk to you about the exciting new RevGo Play app. But how does it work? Well, you start by opening a Cable Bahamas My account, so you can take your TV everywhere. Here's a few notes to get you started watching TV on the go. Step 1. Create a Cable Bahamas My account. Step 2. Download the latest version of the RevGo Play app from the Google Play or iTunes App Store. Step 3. Log into the app using your email and My account password. Step 4. Enjoy your Rev TV on the go. Well, that's our Rev tip for today. Be sure to join us next time for more information on how to get the best out of all your Rev services.
We are back with more on the record. Reynard Rigby, Glenisha Aubrey, and Robin Lyons are my guests tonight. We're discussing the PLP moving closer to a new constitution. Reynard, I want to talk about the composition of the Constitutional Committee. You serve as chairman now. Who are some of the individuals who sit on this committee, and how are they selected? And certainly, what other things will this Constitutional Committee be affecting, if anything else at all?
Well, the committee was appointed by the party leader. I assume the names were determined by the party leadership, which would have included the national chairman. It was a broad committee. We had representation from Abaco, Exuma, Grand Bahama, and there's a balance between men and women, young, old, etc., etc. Essentially, our work now, after Saturday, is really to look at the recommendations which came on the floor of the convention, to make some tidying up of the document, and then to lay that document over to the party leadership for it to go through the other organs of the party, go to Leadership Council for approval, and then on to the National General Council for ratification, and then at the party's upcoming convention in November, October for formal adoption by the party convention. I think it's also important to put in context that the PLP is a 64-year organization. And we all know that the politics have changed drastically since 1953.
Absolutely, yeah.
And so what we wanted to look in this process is to find means and ways where we create the flexibility in the Constitution to allow all of our organs and bodies to be able to be creative in how they carry out the political work in their respective constituencies. I think we have sort of struck that balance. so as to ensure that all of our bodies have the tools and the ammunition to go out and engage in inviting Bahamians to join the party, listen to the party message, understand the core principles, so ultimately that we could win the next election. That's what political organizations are formed to do.
What would you say? I mean, obviously this document is still not public and still, you know, obviously being worked on, but what would you say if you could identify some of the critical changes that are being proposed that you think could work in favor of the party at this point?
I think the biggest change is probably what I term the democratization of the party, in terms of the balance between the stalwarts and the other voting delegates. That has been achieved. Yeah. That has been achieved. And we have done in a way where I think we allow constituency organizations to go out and build their membership to earn their increased delegate counts, right?
So you can increase your, your count.
Okay. So you've gone now from 10 to 30 delegates, right? And essentially what we're doing is we're creating a larger party, because you're going to have a lot more delegates than ever before the party's convention who will be voting and participating in the discussions. The other big thing that we have done is that we have looked at our organs and find a way how we get a broad representation of views. So it's not a narrow view. You don't have to now say, let me buddy up to the leader to make sure I get appointed to this committee or the next committee. Young Liberals, the Women's Branch, Family Island representatives, they have guaranteed representation on all the standing committees of the party. And I think that too adds to sort of spreading the discussion to a more myriad issue, so that people from the Family Islands who bring their different perspective can share their views. The other big thing that we have done is we have allowed for structured primaries to be held in our constituencies. We believe that's going to be an exciting...
Structured primaries, explain.
Structured primary. What that means is that a constituency will be allowed to bring all of their members into a meeting, an annual general meeting, and they will be able to vote for the candidates who are vying for the candidacy of the party.
So it's not just the leader comes and said, I'm bringing Robin here. I think she...
No. And mind you, we've done this before. This is not, we're not cutting no new thing.
Right.
We've had a custom of doing it. What we thought would be important is to put in the Constitution.
There's always, and I'm sure everybody's, there's always been a tug of war, particularly as we get down into elections, when it comes to candidates. It's always who the leader or even I think a committee will select versus who sometimes the constituents or the branch members want. But is this now being taken completely out of the hands of the leader and coming strictly from the
Well, I mean, the way our Constitution is now structured, it's never really been in the hands of the leader per se. But of course, it can be perceived to be so because the Constitutional Committee, the members that form that committee, are appointed by the chairman on the advice of the leader, right? So in one way, you can say, okay, this is the leader's grouping. But the branch has always had an input or can always make their recommendation in our present Constitution. What's happening now is that it's not necessarily just a recommendation or just
the opinion.
Yeah, just the opinion of the branch.
Right.
The Constitution is trying to structure the branch to choose who will represent it. And in the event that there are multiple branches, because that's one of the things that we're discussing, do we create a model for our constituencies where there's no singular branch, but there is the option for multiple branches in a constituency when you look at how large that constituency may be, the populace, et cetera, and we're still kind of debating how we formulate that. But of course, what we're saying is that there are often times where branches disagree on who they want to represent them.
And that happens, So you have factions.
They may want a Jerome, they may want a Robin, they may want Glenisha, et cetera. So the idea is now to have a primary style election so that the majority of those branch members can vote for the individual of their choice, and that would be the choice of that branch to represent them in the constituency. And only in very extreme circumstances, like for instance, if the individual recommended by the branch doesn't meet the party's fitness requirements or has been in breach of a certain aspect of our code of conduct, etc., or isn't a good candidate, then that decision of the branch can be vetoed or overridden. But other than that, we're telling the branch, let us know who it is that you want to represent you. And the reality of it is, this is going to cause potential candidates to have to do a lot more work within those constituencies even before they can even determine that they're going to vie for
the reality of politics in the Bahamas is that a candidate shows up to the constituency to run. It's not often that you come from that constituency. It's, you know what, I think so-and-so will make a good candidate. I think so-and-so is electable. Let me now look on the map to see where I'm going to place him or her. I mean, that is the reality, and that's how it works. So now you're looking to change that so that if whomever has political aspirations, it's almost as if they have to now come through the constituency.
Absolutely have to come through the constituency. And it also encourages greater participation from the branch level and from party members, because you too want to be a part of the selection process. So you're going to join the branches, you're going to be active. This is the goal. You want to have a voice at the table where these kinds of decisions are being made.
Now, this is not new. Let me just say that, because historically, in the early days of the movement, a candidate would have to be ratified or would have to come through his constituency branch.
When the leader and others show up with candidate in tow, what happens is, this is my man, this is my woman, I need him or her to be on the ticket, you all need to ratify him.
Yeah, but there have been occasions in the party's history where a candidate that the former party leader wanted, there are many examples, right, where the National General Council refused to ratify that candidate. Yeah. And so if all of the organs of the party are functioning as they should, right, then you're going to have a situation where even though that may be the choice of the leader, that leader's choice is not ratified either at the constituency level or by the National General Council.
Clenisha, something that was said just a little while ago really speaks to, in some instances, I personally call it the party's Achilles heel. The fact that, it is I always say the PLP is not just a party, it's an institution. Yeah. You're talking about a party that, historically has done a lot to move the country forward. And so there is this love affair. But it has also created, I call an old boys club within the party as well. You have individuals who have been there almost from day one, who hold significant power and influence. How do you see that now changing? As a young person, do you see now the retirement and real retirement of the old guard? Because sometimes, I see politicians say they retire, but they still actively doing things, within the party and helping to cause some things to happen as well. But do you now, as a young person, do you honestly see that full retirement of members of that old guard who would have served, had their time? And do you see now a real changing of the guard?
I do see a real changing of the guard. However, I don't want those old people to go. They carry the wisdom. We bring innovative ideas, they bring the wisdom. So I want them to assist us in mentoring. They can stay in retirement from frontline politics.
It's real retirement and it's perceived retirement.
They can stay in real retirement while they mentor all of us and mentor individuals like Robin Line and mentor especially young individuals like myself. Because even though I'm here, I'm talking about the Progressive Liberal Party and PYL, there's a lot of things that I don't know. There are a lot of history that I don't know, and that's what we want them there for. We want them to mentor us and tell us that you should not do that, and this is the way to go. This is how you should help yourself with your public image. This is what we want from all of them. So we don't want them in retirement.
Is that though happening with the party? Because now, just before I even let you answer that, one of the things that the PLP continues to suffer from is pardon the word suffer, but one of the things that you will hear people criticize the party for is that there are still some old faces of the party that represent some things from the past that continue to emerge that cause the public angst.
Yes. I mean, we've heard that. I think we all live in the Bahamas. We know what the big issues are that the party have to address. I think, though, that if the party wants to be a credible choice in the run-up to the next election, the candidate and the slot of candidates would have to really be young, progressive persons who are, in the majority, fresh faces coming on the scene.
But I don't just mean candidates, you know.
I understand.
Because there are some people who working within the party who show up.
No, but, you see, if a member of parliament has served for 20 years, and he has wisdom that he could pass on to the younger generation of PLPs. Because bear in mind now, when you look at the House of Assembly today, there are, sadly, right, there are people who sit in the House of Assembly today who do not understand how government is intended to function or work.
That's a dangerous part.
It's a dangerous part.
Yeah.
So what the party has to do, and we've started this process of trying to educate members, particularly those who may be interested in frontline politics, of understanding how basic things operate and run in the country. Who's best to do that? Persons who've served in the capacity of a cabinet minister before, or attorney general, right? And so the party has to find a space, right, for those persons who, based on their experience, can lend much to the further development and evolution of our democracy. And so we can't be talking about pushing them to the side.
It's not so much pushing to the side, and this is my point, that if you would have left politics or you would have been painted with a tainted brush at some point, it is not always good optics to have you shoulder to shoulder standing with someone who is in the front line as if you are still being influenced by. And I think that sometimes is the optics of it.
Yes, absolutely.
That is the issue.
Well, I mean, the reality of it is that perception carries a whole lot more weight than what's actually going on. And politics is largely driven by perception. And as a party, we have to be intentional about addressing the perception, the public perception of us as a party. And so I take the point that you're trying to make, that listen, when you're making changes, then you have to be intentional and very strategic about where you place persons that have caused problems, whether those are perceived problems.
Sometimes you have to tell some people to stay home.
I agree. And I think
when I say stay home, stay out of the public eye.
From a very practical standpoint, anybody who understands politics, right, will know that that is occurring, right? Because the fact that you have to say to some persons, it is not, if you are in retirement, right, that it is important for the party's image and the process that we are now embarking upon for you to step aside and to create the space for other voices and faces to be seen and heard. That is occurring, right? And that is an ongoing process that will lead into the next election.
Yeah, and I think people also have to give the party credit for how much has been done in such a short period of time as well. The work is ongoing. And the work is visible. It can be seen.
I want you to hold that right there. We have just completed the first half of our discussion. We're going to take a break. PLP moving closer to new constitution. That's our topic tonight. We're back right on the other side of this break. We are in our second season of On the Record, and we thank you, our viewing audience, for allowing us into your homes every Thursday at 8 p.m. We value your opinion, and we want you to be a part of our discussions. So make sure you follow us on Facebook and Instagram and comment on our exciting topics. Remember, it's all on the record.
Hi, I'm here to tell you about the fastest way to purchase the vehicle you want right from home.
With SBT Japan, we import used cars from Japan straight to you.
Car ownership doesn't have to be hard. Go to sbtjapan.com and sign up for free. Search for the car you want. Place your order and make a payment using any one of our convenient payment options. Once you pay the duty and tax to our in-house broker, we will clear the vehicle and even deliver it straight to your home. Sounds too easy? Well, shouldn't it be?
And we are back with more On the Record. We're discussing the PLP's constitutional changes with my guests, Reynard Rigby, Robin Lyons, and Glenisha Aubrey. How long do you intend for this process to take? I mean, obviously you are, I think, at an important and critical stage. You have now presented the change, or the changes have been presented. You have to now solidify them and then move them around through the various organs, preparing for convention. So is it that the new constitution or the constitutional changes will be made known by the convention later
this
year?
Yeah. It's going through the process. I imagine the committee will meet maybe sometime next week or the next 2 weeks to finalize the document. It then moves to the Leadership Council. Once it leaves the Leadership Council, it is then presented to the National General Council, ratified there on its way to the National General Convention.
So what now if there is some pushback? What if there are some things in that that people don't agree with or causing some issues?
I think based on what occurred on Saturday, and Saturday was a very dynamic session where we went article by article, and any member of the party who's a delegate or observer in the room or simulcasting in the Family Islands were allowed to raise any questions, make any edits or amendments that they thought was necessary. And I thought that we had a really good working session. We don't anticipate there to be any significant issues coming out of Saturday's convention. All of the big issues were addressed. There was a unanimous support for the draft, subject to the edits and amendments that were made on the floor of the convention. And it's a dynamic document. And so we anticipate that when it gets to the Leadership Council, there may be questions or that the committee has to answer. There may be further suggestions when it gets to the National General Council as well, and even when it gets to the convention. Because it's the party's constitution, we want to ensure at the end of the day that every single PLP who has a vested interest in the party's constitution are allowed to see it, read it, understand it, and support the recommendations which are being put forth.
Robin, what would you say were some of the more difficult conversations or difficult points or amendments that came up over the weekend?
One of the things that we had some pushback from was the idea of capping the amount of stalwart councillors that the party can have. I think one of the figures that was thrown out was 2,500, another was 3,000, and of course that caused a lot of response. A lot of response, and you know, me personally, and I think a lot of people share this view, I don't think an honor should have a cap, because it is to be bestowed upon an individual that has met certain requirements. And to say to someone, you know, you've earned this award, but we don't have any more left to give, I think that is something that the party shouldn't even venture into. But one of the things that our present constitution says is that the leader, and words to this effect, the leader can appoint as many stalwart councillors as he deems necessary. That's one of the clauses in our constitution. That's not in this document. So this kind of unfettered discretion, if you will, to appoint any number of stalwart councillors at any given time, that has now been removed. And the constitution is also looking at the amount that can be appointed at any given time and when those appointments can take place, how far out from a convention, and those kinds of things. So I think that was one of the conversations, capping the stalwart councillors, that caused some pushback. Another one was this multiple branches within a constituency. Is that idea going to be more divisive as opposed to bringing together a larger grouping of people or multiple grouping of people? Is it going to cause internal conflict?
Why would you need several branches, though, within a constituency? It would seem to me...
See, well, that's the conversation that is still ongoing.
Because a branch is a branch. I mean, you've got a constituency, is one constituency. I don't understand why you would. Well,
I think the concept lend itself to the geography and the demographics of these constituencies.
Okay, let's say, for instance, like a Michael.
Right.
All right. So,
and I use Fox Hill too, right? And the concept of a multiple branch is now being used by the party, principally in Family Island communities, based on settlements, etc., and the geography. But there are some constituencies in New Providence who favor this concept because they have recognized that their geography and the demographics lend itself to groupings of people meeting in their sections, right? And that the fractionalization that sometimes exists would be minimized if people are allowed to meet in a setting where they are comfortable.
That is true, because sometimes constituencies, particularly in New Providence, go across socioeconomic lines.
Yes.
And depending, you made a very good point, depending on where you live and what your level of comfort is, you're not going to a particular area, and it may just be that, you know, you're not comfortable in that setting, or we don't choose our constituencies.
Absolutely. And really, at the end of the day, a political organization is formed with a view to build membership. This is voluntarism. So the committee's view was, listen, we should allow a formula which allows people to meet at ease, to allow that constituency organization to sort of build their membership in a format that they decide. It's entirely optional. A constituency leadership could decide that based on our geography, one branch works. We don't have to change that. But if you think on the map of how your constituency is drawn out, that it makes sense for you to have a branch here, a cluster of polling divisions, another branch here with a cluster of polling divisions, it allows you in your respective constituencies to make that determination for yourself without the party having to say to you, this is how we want you to do it.
But
well, and then also when you look at the way boundary lines continue to change, a lot of times there's a level of unfamiliarity because you may have been in one constituency in the last election, and all of a sudden in this election you're in a new constituency, and so is there a level of familiarity with this branch? You know, do you know the people in this branch? And so, like I said, it's a debate that is ongoing. I think that the discussions are very healthy as it relates to how we want our branches to look. And so we're exploring those things. And at the last, one of the last conventions that we had, the structure of the Progressive Young Liberals had changed. Whereas there was one general Progressive Young Liberals, and we wanted to have branches of the PYL on every Family Island. Now we're reverting back to a process that we had already, where we're trying to see if it makes practical sense to encourage a Progressive Young Liberal in every constituency branch.
I have to ask Lanisha whether that would make sense.
I think that was something that they requested. Yeah, they requested that.
Yeah, so that was our recommendation, to have a PYL in every single constituency. The reason for that is we have a national board, we have a national meeting that happens the fourth Sunday of every month. You would find that some people can't make it to the Sunday meeting. However, they want to be active in their branch. And that's very fine with us. We have youth officers in our branch. I would say we need more presence in our constituency. So by putting a PYL in every constituency, you would find that we can reach out to more young people. We can assist more young people. We can find out which each constituency needs in terms of the young demographic. So that's why we are pushing for that in every constituency.
From the outside, it sounds, the setup of this seems to be ideal for reaching out, engaging. How much of this will help you to remain or get back in touch and keep your finger on the pulse of communities? Because the setup of it sounds quite nice, but will it, at the end of the day, will it mean now that you are still going to be more in touch with voters? Because in the last election, clearly there was a lot of disconnect.
Well, we think so. I mean, we think that with the new structure that will be rolled out, that it's going to increase membership in the party. It's going to make our constituencies a lot more politically active, as they should be in the off-political season in particular, not waiting for the run-up to the general election to get into motion. And that once those things play out, that it would mean, therefore, that the party has a better pulse of what's happening in every single constituency, not just in New Providence, but also in the Family Islands. Because that information would be shared on a regular basis in the party structure to the Secretary General, to the party leadership. And therefore, the party will be better able to understand whether there's a shifting of support in a particular area based on the numbers that are coming to a PLP meeting or to the PYL meeting or to the Women's Branch meeting. And we begin, therefore, to shape ideas based on what we are hearing occurring in these constituencies.
In the run-up to the election, we would have seen in the setup piece, there was this race for leader, and you would have seen Mr. Christie at that time receive an overwhelming amount of support. That did not translate into the general election. Even in the post-analysis, a lot of people, a lot of the polls analysis would have blamed the loss on a Christie and said, you know, people have said, you know, I cannot support a Christie, Mr. Christie. How do you avoid, seemingly avoid a situation like that again, where somebody who is not electable on the outside continues to be leader of the party and takes the party into into an election? Because, you know, I always go back to the story of the Emperor's New Clothes, where everybody around him is saying, you look great, until the one little boy says, but you're naked. But how do you avoid something like that, where the party has set itself up to have this particular leader or individuals, etc., carrying them into an election, and it is not reflective of what the people want or what should be happening? Because, you know, and I'm going to be honest, I've seen it time and time again. Around the leader are those who are telling him, yes sir, this is what we need to do, you're doing a great job, we're going to win this. But on the outside, people are screaming bloody murder. Right. You know, how do you avoid something like that from happening again?
But I think, again, it goes back to the structure of who gets to make these decisions. And when you look at the structure of who's making the decisions, when you expand that, when you have a better cross-sectional representation within the branches, because the branches, our constituency branches, they are the faces of the people that are going to be voting in the general election. When you expand their capacity to make those decisions, then automatically you bring a broader scope of persons that are going to be selecting. Like I said, when I discussed the numbers, the 11 delegates from each constituency branch is all that they were allotted. Now we're proposing to increase that number of delegates to 31, when you include the National General Council member, 31 per branch. And if there is a model for that particular branch where they have multiple branches, like a Progressive Young Liberals within a constituency would have 21 delegates that are voting. 21 people with that look and sound just like Glenisha, making a decision about who they want to be the leader. And if you have that model in all of our constituencies represented at a convention, the outcome is going to be completely different.
I want to pick up on that, but we've got to take a break. We've got one more segment. Stay with us. We're going to continue our discussion with my guests right after this.
One America News Network, your leading source for the latest breaking national and international news. With nearly 4 times as many headlines as the other networks. Straight news, no speculation, no opinion, just the facts. Complete coverage 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. One America News Network, your source for credible news.
Hi, I'm Davriel, and welcome to Rev Tips, where we answer your most important Rev service questions. Today's question is, how do I set up a Rev My account? It's super easy. To create a Rev My account, simply visit www.cablebahamas.com and click the My Account icon. Next, select the Create Account option. please have a copy of your latest statement on hand. Enter the information as it appears on the statement to the respective areas on the form. When you have finished, click Create Account to continue with the process. Once you've registered your account, you can use your username and password to check your account balance, view past statements, and pay your bill online. Your My Account credentials also give you access to RevGo Play and all other apps within our suite. And that's your Rev Tip for this week. Thanks for watching, and be sure to join us next time.
Welcome back. We are into our final segment of this episode. We're discussing the PLP's moving forward to a new constitution. My guests, Raynard Rigby, Robin Lines, Clenisha Aubrey. As we went into the break, really talked about how to avoid what would have happened going into the last election with a leader being re-elected who was not electable in the wider public. Politics being what it is. If a leader or someone within that party who has substantial or significant influence decides that he or she is going to retain power at all costs, the nature of politics being what it is, he or she now puts some things in place to ensure that they are going to be re-elected. And I always say you don't become leader of a party by playing nice. You know, politics can be a dirty game, it can be a difficult fight. But if somebody, a leader, decides, I want to hold on to power, he or she and his people are going to start to make some things happen and are going to start to bring out the engines of I call it engines of politics. They're going to reach out to some people and say, hey, we got to make sure my boy is straight. Got to make sure some things happen. Can you avoid that from happening?
I think so. I think there's a myth. Let me dispel this myth, right? A lot of people say that, you know, Mr. Christie was able to survive because he had hand-picked and appointed a large number of stalwart councillors prior to the election or the convention. Every single stalwart councillor who is appointed by the Progressive Party must be ratified by the National General Council. So the leader alone doesn't appoint or select stalwart councillors. It goes through the organs of the party. In this constitutional exercise, what we hope to achieve is the point that Robin made earlier, is that with larger voices coming from the constituency branches, from the arms and affiliates of the party, you would expect there to be a broader representation of views at the party's convention, and therefore the selection of the leadership of the party would hopefully reflect the views and the opinions of the electorate. Are we going to get it all right? I'm not sure we're going to get it all right, because political parties are also about cults, right? And as you in your intro clip, you hear the people was chanting one leader, right? And so what we are trying to do is to broaden participation in a democratic way, and therefore to allow the instances of abuse by a mega leader, right, to be at an absolute minimum. And I believe that we've achieved that by and large in the new constitution, which has been laid out on Saturday to the convention.
And what I'd like to add is this. When the October convention was done, the Constitutional Committee was appointed that November of last year. No leader that is trying to stifle democracy would embark on this process. And so our leadership is leading the charge in the changes that are being made to the party. Our leadership advised the Constitutional Committee to be formed. And so we're already saying, just by the mere fact that this process is taking place, that we want to see changes in how we are selected.
Is that being translated, though, to the public? Is the public seeing that, or is this something that people within the party are seeing?
I think that it is a conversation that is ongoing. It is a debate that is ongoing both internally and externally. And I think that whenever you start to look at the laws, the regulations and rules that govern you as an organization, people tend to take notice about what changes it is that you're going to implement. I think what the public is waiting to see is the effect that these changes are going to have in the organization as a whole. They're aware, but they want to see the effect. How does this translate in reality? How does this, how is the PLP any different now, or proposing to be any different now than it was before? And those things can only be done through the process of time. People have to see it.
Tanisha, what is necessary and needed to make the PLP attractive again to young voters?
Okay, so to young voters, the basic thing is we want you to listen. We want you to form committees on the legalization of marijuana. We want to talk about college tuition. We want to talk about more scholarships to further educate people in sciences and all of these different things. We just want a more progressive and more liberal. Our name, we want all of those approaches. So that's what the party has to do. So I will, of course, always remind the party that the young people, we are going to be carrying this country on in the future. So you have to listen to what we want to say. Start with the building blocks for what we need, and not what we want, what we need. Because right now in this country...
Has that started? Are you satisfied that that is beginning to happen? Not just from within the party, because, you know, supporters are supporters. You have some people who are supporters regardless.
Yeah.
But is that happening, and is it being felt outside of just the, I guess, the people who are part of the Progressive Young Liberals?
So right now, we of course are starting a committee for the legalization of marijuana. So it is starting, and leadership is listening. When we come and we say, hey, we really feel like this should be happening right now, and they'd say, okay, well then draft something up for us, let's talk about it. So it is happening, and of course, as time goes on, when the Constitution is passed and we are moving on, you're going to find that there's going to be more, of course, liberal stances that the party is going to be taking, because we're, of course, pushing for it, and of course, we're in the position to do it. We have the seat at the table, like I said before.
Yeah, I think, in addition to what Glanisha is saying, decisions aren't being made in the dark. Decisions aren't being made in a closed room with just this few select persons. The party is intentionally opening its doors and saying to any number of persons, PLP members and supporters, what are you thinking about these things? So our standing committees are being expanded. We want more of them. The membership of those committees are being expanded. We want more members. How those members are selected is being expanded. We want more. So the table has enlarged for the PLP. The seats at the table have enlarged for the PLP. And there's this intentional education process of our members. A lot of what we found in the last election, regardless of what people are saying, a lot of people didn't understand what the PLP was doing as government. They didn't know, and they didn't see the vision. There was a lot of propaganda, a lot of talk, a lot of communication, and the party was just too slow to respond to these things. And so now there's this education process of persons that want to be candidates in the party. We've introduced the aspirant candidates module. We're looking at greater education and training of our branch executives. How do we run our branches? How do we want our executives to disseminate this information? How are we penetrating public knowledge about what the vision is of the PLP? That was lacking to a large degree, and we're dealing with those issues as we speak.
And while I think that is important, there is something out there, and as we wrap up, I want you to be able to address this, and the PLP really suffers from an image problem as well. Yeah. How is that being addressed? Going into the election, I think the image of the party was at a very low point. And that would have contributed in many ways to the defeat. What is, and while this sounds great, this is your internal stuff, you got to clean up the house on the inside first, but what is happening to clean up the image on the outside and give people a different perspective? Because I will be honest, some people I ask from time to time, I said, you know, given all of the issues that you may have with the current government and the missteps and however, you know, you want to categorize it, has it changed your view of the PLP? And I still find a lot of people say, no, I may not like what's going on, but my view has not changed of the PLP. And that is that can be very difficult if you're trying now to win an election the next time around in a few short years. What is being done, I guess, now to change and clean up that image?
I think over the next 6 months to a year. Bear in mind that we did the post-election assessment, going around the country talking to PLPs. We did this constitutional work going around the country talking to PLPs. The next big work is going to come about the platform. What should the PLP be standing for? What should we be fighting for, the Bahamian people? And that process, I think, is going to take the same format that we've been doing all along, going around the country talking to Bahamians.
About it's interesting. First you said you're talking to PLPs, and I thought, well,
yeah, talking to Bahamians.
Some other people.
Talking to Bahamians.
Okay,
those two were two internal documents. This is now a larger document. Talking to Bahamians about how they see their country, where they want to see their country, and engaging them in a conversation which talks really about the future. How we roll that out, I think, is going to be critical. The next important thing for us to do is to send a very clear message. We can't just talk it. People want to say you have to, it's not just your words, it's also your deeds and your conduct, right? We have to demonstrate to the Bahamian people that we get the point. People don't want there to be any issues of corruption and conflicts of interest by those who they are elected, right? And therefore, the party has to demonstrate in a glaring way that those persons who go there and make statements on behalf of the party, who will be the party's standard bearers in the next election campaign, are whistle clean. They are not relics of the past because they represent a new paradigm shift in the party, where we want to take the country, what those policies are going to be, because we all know that if we go there with a great message, but the faces are the same old faces of the past, the message gets lost. And so the party will have to be a grown-up party and come to the realization that things have changed.
Like my mother used to say, don't make sense, babe. It don't make sense putting on new clothes if you ain't babe. Yeah. Okay? So, folks, I want to thank you so much for coming by tonight. We've had a fantastic discussion. I think the audience has learned quite a bit about what is happening and the work that you are doing. I really have to say that I am encouraged to see young faces, and Reynard may not agree, but I'm happy to see new faces representing the party. Reynard, you have been involved with the PLP for some time, but still represent, my generation, which ain't that old, But it's encouraging to see new faces in politics because that is important. And I think young voters have sent the message loud and clear and continue that they do not want business as usual and not wanting the same old faces with the same old ideas. So, thank you, and I encourage, as Bahamians, as young Bahamians that represent different generations.
It's about the future.
It is, definitely. So thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
I've appreciated the conversation. I hope that you have enjoyed our show tonight. Special thanks to my guests, Robin Lyons, Reynard Rigby, Glenisha Aubrey, my producer, technical staff, and of course you, our audience, for watching every week. Be sure and join us for more On the Record. Same time, same place next week. I'm your host, Jerome Sawyer. We'll see you next time.